today?
No, it's just going to be a work session.
Okay, 1 second. It's just loading.
It says we're streaming.
Okay,
Okay, now we're good. Yeah.
great. Thank you. Welcome to the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee. Today is January 27th, and it is 5:01 p.m. So today, this is our first meeting of the session where we're going to do any work. This is a work meeting. It's going to be a work group. We're just going to go through. You should have the agenda on the 4 bills that we have. We're going to kind of just talk through them generally. We're not going to vote on any of these bills today. We're just going to kind of talk through and see how the committee's in general feeling about these bills. And thank you again, Molly, for doing all the screen sharing and setting all of this up. For those that don't know, Molly works very hard to make sure we have everything ready. So let's go ahead and start with HB 0010. That's Delegate Corman's bill, Maryland Transit Administration conversion to zero emissions bus fleet. We passed this bill last year, which is great. Not this bill, I'm sorry. We passed the bill to help make that happen last year. And this bill simply cleans up and makes sure that people are trained and we have opportunities for people to have jobs and work in this industry. Patrick, do you want to give a little summary of the bill other than the synopsis, which I'm happy to read for everybody?
Well, you pretty much just did. It's training and it seems to be the sticking point is apprenticeships.
Okay, was there anybody against this bill? I don't remember. I'm looking and I didn't see.
No.
And that was a little bit.
They were just worried about, they expressed some concern about whether they're, I don't know, about apprenticeships, like Patrick said, but nobody else was, I mean, nobody was really against it. And apprenticeships are important.
Yeah, you know, when we do this transition, this is what it's going to be. Actually, Delegate Learman and I were texting earlier this week. We just find ourselves in a really, I think, a really interesting place, historically speaking, when we're transitioning. It's not that indifferent to the Industrial Revolution, when we started transitioning to all kinds of things and away from horses and buggies to cars and trucks. And so now we're doing the same thing, except that's just the form of transporting is the same, but we're just going from internal combustion to electric. And there's going to be some differences as we get so much of this work in our committee. And this is kind of one of them. As we make that transition, there's going to need to be some new training and things. Does anybody have any questions or any issues with the bill that they want?
Delegate, can I clarify on the apprenticeships?
Sure, please.
Yeah, I was about to ask him.
They seem to prefer more in-house programs as being less burdensome and less costly and probably delivering the same results. I can't really speak to that as to what the difference between an actual apprenticeship program and an in-house program would be.
Well, I mean, when you do an apprenticeship program with a union, a certified apprenticeship program, you know, there's a whole lot that goes along with it, right? You're getting health insurance along the way. You're getting your certifications, ATU is the union that's going to be doing all of this work. So, there's just a different level of, you're paid a certain amount, like you're part of the collective bargaining agreement, I would assume. I am not familiar with MDOT doing apprenticeships or having a true apprenticeship program.
They testified that they don't have one.
Right. So there you go.
They don't even know.
Right. So ATU clearly does. This is part of what they do. And many unions do. Many unions have these programs, certainly IBEW and others. So, I think I would defer to them on that kind of work.
Yeah, especially on the certifications. I think that certifications part is extraordinarily important. Delegate Foley.
Yes, thank you. So I was just kind of responding to Delegate Learman's comments, which I'm sorry I joined late, but I think that, most of the apprenticeships that we're familiar with are building trade apprenticeships. So you learn a trade, right? So you learn how to be a bricklayer, or you learn how to be a plumber, or you learn how to be a painter. I think this is a little different in that sounds to me like this is training on like new, if you will, equipment. Okay, and then you get certified to operate and work on that equipment. So it might not be an apprenticeship in the traditional sense. And I'm not sure about this. Maybe we should ask them. It seems like that maybe this was existing drivers who are going into this program to learn how to do this.
Delegate Foley, we have representatives from MDOT on the call.
Okay.
In Pilar.
Get there. No, that's okay. That's okay. That's just what we're doing. We're talking through this. I'm going to want to go with Delegate Boyce and then Nora, I guess, from MDOT. I'll let Delegate Boyce go first. That way you can address her potential concerns.
Can Nora go first? Because she may answer the question that I have, because the question is also about apprenticeship. And the only concern I had was the confusion about who would do it, who is best to do it, and who essentially knows the quote unquote technology enough to do it. I think I'm not interested in duplication of I guess, programming. If the programming exists or the union who can do this exists, I would love to see a partnership. But if not, I think that's the point we're going to have to discuss in this committee for this bill. Like, what is the best way forward without shutting out the unions in the actual apprenticeship programs?
No, absolutely.
Hi, everybody. Just introducing myself this year. My name is Nora Korsnidi. I'm the Deputy Director of Government Affairs at MDOT MTA. So you guys already touched on a lot of my points, which is that we're kind of on the precipice of this technology. And I think a lot of our concern stems from the fact that there aren't a lot of established, or maybe any established registered apprenticeship programs for this right now. So we do have the Transportation Learning Center that ATU mentioned in their technology, or in their testimony, I'm sorry. And that's a great resource, but they don't have a registered apprenticeship as of right now. We're really looking forward to trying to work with them, maybe see if we come up with something. But as of today, there's nothing comparable that we would be able to point to that would meet kind of the specifications in the bill. And I think the other part of the concern too is we spoke a lot in our fiscal note about costs, but there's a startup cost to anything that we're going to put forward. So that's more where that number comes from. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Questions?
So really quickly from my notes, I wrote down that because I think IBEW testified, and they were saying that they may be able to handle the training. And I don't know if my notes are correct, is that they do some work with that new facility in Silver Spring. Was that correct?
Yeah, that's the Transportation Learning Center.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very possible that they may be able to help. I should speak also to the fact that initial training is going to come for our workforce from our electrification partner. So that partner will be chosen. They will come and speak to us about all the technology that they've installed and that sort of thing. And then moving forward would dictate how we train going forward from that.
So yeah, I mean, according to my notes, I think there's just a thought about how to, rather than create something brand new, how do we scale up what we already have, whether that is within the union that could potentially manage this, as well as the new facility in Silver Spring. And so I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, what are your thoughts about how we figure out in that way, if there's a scale up needed, how do we scale it up? And if I don't want to have the bill point to a specific union, because I don't think that'd be good on our part, but speak to essentially who or what or how many, it doesn't matter, because at this point it's going to be a lot of different unions or a lot of different certified apprenticeship programs going to be probably created or enhanced or built up in a sense of IBEW that would be able to do this. I don't know.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Delegate Boyce. I think it's going to require some conversations and working through some of these issues to make sure we get it right. I will also reach back out to Delegate Corman, because I'm sure Delegate Corman has done some of this already. He is extraordinarily thorough as in his bills, so we can work through all of that. Any other questions? I see Delegate Foley has your hand up left from the last question, or do you have another question?
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
So this is for the MDOT representative. Are there any other unions that represent drivers or mechanics in the state fleet other than other than ATU?
So ATU is our main union that represents the vast majority of our operators.
Yes, so again, isn't this contemplating retraining rather than, I mean, isn't that, maybe I'm wrong about that, but isn't this more of a retraining program?
So I think the better word is maybe transition.
Okay.
Just they're going to be moving away from the technology they're currently trained on and have been for many years to something that's completely new.
Yes.
But then after that, when there were new people, they would be initially trained in this, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I've taken some notes down and I can talk with anybody that wants to talk more in detail, and I'll make some phone calls. Okay, let's move to, thank you very much. Let's move to HB 64, Delegate Krim, State Highway Designation Shoulder Areas Established by Use and Transit Buses. I think everybody understands this bill. It essentially allows buses to travel on shoulders in certain designated areas around the state. My understanding is that there's very carefully controlled areas, and I think I'd like to just have some conversation. Patrick, is there anything else? I mean, I think it's more than that, but I'm bringing up the bill now.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'd like to ask MDOT if they think they have the authority to do this right now, either PAR or whoever would be appropriate.
Yeah, this is Pilar Helm from MDOT Government Affairs. And we do currently have the authority to do this, to run bus on shoulder.
Sorry, Patrick, were you finished?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask MDOT that one question.
That is a great question. So if you can, is there a position you have? Is there a reason why you haven't? Is there studies that you need to do before you can do it? What is your position on the policy?
So we currently run bus on shoulder on 695 and 29, US 29, and Nora may be able to jump in on, I think those are actually the only two routes that I know of. She might know the exact buses that run on those routes, but I mean, so I think there's like a little bit of competing interest here with MTA and then SHA, right? So, I mean, we didn't take a formal position on the bill. I know our letter said letter of support. I know Delegate Krim was very excited about that. It should have said letter of information. It was an informational letter. But, I think generally, we are, we are willing to do this if it makes sense on the road, if the road supports it, and if it, makes sense from that perspective. But, we don't take a position formally on this bill.
Okay. Is the reason you can't do it, what is the reason you don't look at it besides 29 and 695? What are the reasons why we're not looking at it on 270 or 70 or any other roads?
Yeah, so I can get back to you on that. I mean, from my perspective, I think that we do look at it when we can, but I can get back to you on 270 on, maybe some other roads that we are looking at this option for, if that would help.
Do you do it currently on any other roads in Maryland, any other state highways in Maryland? Does anybody do it? MDTA do it?
I don't believe so. I think it's just 695 and 29 from what I know right now, but I can look further into that.
Okay. But my question is, part of it is, you said you're authorized to do it on 695 and 29, but do you do it? Have you done it at all? Or that's just something that you can do if you want to, you just haven't done it? I'm trying to get some clarity.
Sure. So I think we do, and Norm may be able to help. I think we do run it on 695 and 29.
So right now we run about 6 or 7 commuter bus routes that have the ability, when it's safe, to do it on Route 29. I think we've had conversations about other roads before, but we've not implemented anything, and I can get back to you on those conversations.
Okay. In this order, Delegate Parrott, Delegate Boyce, Delegate Healy, and then Delegate Foley. Woo! It's a hot one.
Yeah, thank you. This is an interesting bill. I mean, I like the concept a whole lot of using the shoulders. I think we nailed it. We decided that really the state highway already has the authority for this. So I don't really know that we need the bill at all, unless we're trying to encourage them, in which case the bill should be written differently to say we encourage this type of actions. I can tell you from an engineering point of view why they don't use the shoulders a lot. And that's because the shoulders are oftentimes have a different pavement depth than the regular streets. So you got the 2 lanes and then the shoulder actually has a different slope to it. It's steeper and it also isn't as deep. So it's not traffic bearing a lot of the times. You might notice on I-270, they decided to use the shoulders, convert them to be traffic bearing so that during heavily congested times, that's part of that project they just finished or they're just finishing. So they can use the shoulders for regular traffic. So that just wanted to answer the question. That's why they don't do it a lot of times, but that ability is there. And I do think we want to encourage that use. I think it's a really good use of the shoulders.
Thank you, Neil. Delegate Boyce.
Can I quickly follow up on Delegate Parrott's question and then ask my question? So you're saying that it's from an engineering standpoint, they don't use the shoulders as much because the grading is different or the depth and the grading is different? Because it tends to be that kind of rumble pavement. Like if you fall asleep and you kind of roll over it, you end up rumbling. So it kind of, I guess, jogs you. But
you're right. So yeah, those are the rumble strips. That was about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And they really do help when people are falling asleep. They really,
some roads still have them.
Yeah. So the slope is like, normally it's like, I don't know, let's go hand here, like maybe 4%, and then it's like 8%. So it's greater on the shoulder. And then instead of being maybe this deep, if you see my hands, it's like this deep. So it just can't handle the traffic a lot of times unless they redo the shoulders to make it traffic bearing.
Okay. So can MDOT tell me what, so you say 695 and 29 are designated currently, but sounds like they're used, but yet not used often. So I guess, what is the criteria for MDOT to even decide which spaces should be designated? It sounds like, I think to Delegate Parrott's point, it's grading. I would assume that it is depth because not all shoulders are wide. And then the one thing that I worry about the most is that the shoulder is also where we break down. And so, there is a safety aspect to this for me. It's like if you decide to jump on the shoulder, I mean, you know how hard it is to get out of the shoulder just in general to get back into traffic. And so I have just all of those kind of logistical questions if they can be answered.
Sure. So I'm not a traffic engineer, obviously, but so just to clarify, on 695 and 29, the buses are allowed or authorized to use those shoulders when they need to. They don't regularly run routes on the shoulders. So it's just that they're authorized to use the shoulder area if they need to get around certain things. But certainly, like road conditions, like you said, the width of the shoulder, I can get you more information on exactly what goes into, determining what is the right road and what kind of road condition we need to have to be able to authorize, the buses to use the shoulders.
Yeah, well, that'd be helpful because for me, if we're trying to create a designation, it sounds like depending on what the criteria are, maybe if there's a reason why there is only 695 and 29. I mean, maybe because they meet that criteria and others don't. I don't know. I think it's important to know.
No problem. I can get you that information.
Thanks, Pilar.
Thanks, Pilar. And the other piece, just to tag on, is stormwater management. I think on the inside shoulder, maybe there's some infrastructure there that we could address, and also, overpasses. What does that do? What happens with overpasses? Thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Boyce. Delegate Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for discussing this bill. My question is along the same lines. I like Delegate Parrott, if the department has the authority already, what we're looking for may be just finding out how it's being used. Do you have citations? Do you have COMA regulations as to how the department goes about making these decisions that you could share with the committee? to show, answer some of these questions. What criteria are being used? What circumstances? Who can ask for you to do an evaluation and decide about a particular stretch of road? If there's a community organization, a group of commuters that see this problem all the time, or the people who run the bus system, or the municipality that's adjacent, or the county, who can ask, who has standing to ask for you to take a look at it? And what are the criteria? And whatever the COMAR regulations are that the department has developed, because you have the expertise. I'm very nervous about putting in state law something that we don't have the expertise to decide what's safe and what's not, whereas the department does. So I would like to see what you've already done as far as regulations are.
Yep, I will get all that information on the running list of homework. So I'll get that to you all as soon as possible.
And it might not be regulations. It could just be guidance documents or something like that.
Yep, SHA has a lot of guidance documents like that. Yep.
Okay. Did I see Delegate Foley? Did you have your hand up earlier about this, or am I? Nope.
Yes, I did, Mr. Chairman, but Delegates Boyce and Healy covered my questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. For the members of the subcommittee, are there any other homework assignments for Pilar? Thank you, Pilar, so much. Any other homework assignments? No. All right. Thank you. Let's go to the next bill, HB 0094. This is the same bill. It's my bill. It's the state fleet conversion to zero emission passenger cars and light duty vehicles. This is the same bill that we had last year that we passed out of the House. And it was so exciting because it passed out of the House on sine die. And for those of you that know, that's really great and everything. But if you pass it at 11:30 on sine die and it hasn't gone to the Senate yet, there's nothing really great to celebrate about. So the bill is essentially the same. And I think it is part of Senator Pinsky's very large kind of omnibus Climate Solutions Now Act bill of this year. So are there any questions or thoughts? Do we want to do any homework on this bill for you?
Mr. Chair, if you're saying that this bill is in the exact same posture as this committee and our this subcommittee and committee passed, you're saying that it's exactly the same?
No, it's the same as it was last year, but I cannot confirm yet whether it's in the same exact posture as the Senate version.
Okay, I'd be ready to vote and pass it if it's the exact same posture, but if it's not, we can wait.
That's great. I'm going to work in the next week to make sure it isn't in the same posture. Any other questions about the bill? Okay, great. Okay, next is HB 105, Delegate Healy, motor vehicles operation when approaching disabled vehicles. I know we have had a lot of bills over the last few years, and Patrick, I don't know if you want to talk about the Jimmy Malone days and the Pam Beidel days when we slowly started working on these move overs. When it comes to this, I can't bring it up on my laptop for some reason right now, but I think it's essentially doing the same thing that we're already doing in some cases for tow trucks and police vehicles.
Well, yeah, what we started with what do you call it? First responders, basically fire trucks, police officers, the like, and then went on to tow trucks and then commercial vehicles and service vehicles. Now we finally, just in the last couple of years, did waste and recycling collection. This bill would basically, and Delegate Healy, you can expound upon this if you want. Basically, a disabled motorist with the hazards on,
right, would
add them to the list. And
hazards, or if you don't have hazards, you put a flare out or something.
Flare, sure.
Other things that, so that it's you're not blind to it, that you can actually see that there's something that has been disabled and put there, not an abandoned car, but something where there's some kind of signal. That was done partly to get support for it from law enforcement. They found it would be easier for them as well.
Pilar, maybe, I don't know if you can answer this, or Nora, when we look in the past, 5-8 years when we've been passing these, Are there any statistics or anything that you can get or know off the top of your head, or can get maybe for our next meeting to talk about what we've seen as far as these vehicles are concerned? Because right now, my understanding is those laws require you to slow down and or move over if possible. And I'd be curious to see how many lives that's saved just in those few industries that we've already passed.
Yeah, I
State
can
police
connect
might
with
be a-
the- Yeah, and the state police, but I can also connect with the highway safety office to get some data for the next
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following on that request, do we have data on crashes, fatalities, that sort of thing with cars on the side of the road? And then that's my first question, if we could get those. And then my second question is probably for Patrick. Patrick, what is the current penalty for failure to obey the move over law?
I think it's just a $500 maximum fine. So I can look up what the actual penalty deposit schedule says. Give me a second here.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a very good question. And Delegate Love, I'm sure you remember, because probably on the border, maybe on the border of your district, I don't remember if I have the facts completely straight, but there was a vehicle that was pulled over around the spur of 495 and 270, and a broken down vehicle. And I think either off-duty FBI agent pulled off to the side of the road to lend aid, and then one or both of them were killed as a result of that. So to your point.
Yeah.
Our sorry to jump in. Our letter so in 2020 we recorded 10 pedestrian fatalities on roadways due to disabled vehicles. So I can get further details, like further data, but that's what we have reported for 2020.
Okay, great.
Okay, and Delegate Love, the penalties are 110 from the penalty deposit schedule, 150 if it contributes to an accident, and if it contributes to an accident, results in death, serious bodily injury, it says 750. I don't know how they get to that, but I guess because it contributes to a death. Yeah, okay.
But that doesn't, there's no must appear if it contributes to a death.
No, there's no jail time.
Okay. Delegate Boyce, I'm sorry.
If I could just for information purposes, Patrick, as I recall, one of the reasons why we didn't attach jail time to some of these things was that would put the bill into the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah,
It
And
would.
yeah, so that I think, this is something where we have actual purview over it and we can do something meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I asked that question is because a couple of years ago, we were trying to deal, and you, all of you have seen some of the bills that are coming that we've already heard in the last week or so with some of the hot rod and races and things like that. So it's just interesting to see what is a must appear, what is not a must appear. And we did work on a bill to help Ocean City a couple of years ago, but we worked with the Judiciary Committee to ensure that they were comfortable with what we did. Anyway, go ahead, Delegate Boyce.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. That actually helps a couple of things for me. So, I mean, to Delegate Healy's point, and I had a question more about, and I think I'm looking back at my notes about enforceability, because this is an enforceability issue to begin with, especially as it relates to state police officers and, state highway personnel being killed because of the lack of move over laws or, people just being not paying attention. But to the point of being found guilty on one of those three kind of fines, whether it's the 100, 150 or 750, because you kill somebody, while we don't have quote unquote jail time in here or whatever that is, can it be assumed that upon investigation that I potentially killed somebody in the lack of move over, that the judge could make a decision about whether or not I would go to jail or not?
If there's no jail time in the law, you can't go to jail.
Okay, so Okay. But what happens if I hit somebody out of gross negligence? Like I'm on my cell phone or, so on and so forth. I mean.
Well, these are strict liability crimes. It doesn't matter at what level of negligence you are at. If
So
you
again,
you're liable.
okay.
Can you explain that a little bit further, Patrick?
It just means it doesn't, that your state of mind or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you did it, then you're liable. Or
You're liable, and then you're liable to just pay one of the three.
you shouldn't use the word
level
liable, but
fines, and that's it.
that's all the law allows for is fines.
And then
A lot in our bike bills when people get killed.
I get it. I get it. I'm just saying if we're doing this because essentially people are killed, I'm not saying I want people to go to jail per se, but again, it goes back to accountability and enforceability. Because sometimes some of this stuff is whether or not you see the person or whether or not you get the license plate or, whether there's a camera or not. I mean, it's very.
I think if I could just,
Go
one
ahead,
thing I
Kelly.
think that helped, if I could, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Delegate Healy.
I apologize. I just think that we've been doing this step by step by step. It was a very big step to do it at all. And I think expanding it to all the cars on the side of the road that have the lights or the flashing that people can see will help with changing people's behavior. And I think that's really what we want to do is we want to change behavior. It's not really about writing tickets or finding people. It's getting people to change the way they drive and to be aware of the hazards on the side of the road and that there are people's lives that are at risk. People just don't think about that. But if the more that's covered by this, I think, will make it easier for people to remember that it's important to move over if you can, and if you can, at least slow down. So, because there are people who are at risk. And we started with police officers and first responders, expanded it last time to tow truck drivers and others. And now I think, it's time to expand it further. And I think it's a good idea. I don't think there's a perfect way to do this, but I think that in general, it's the behavior change you want. It's not about being punitive or putting people in jail. It's about people stopping the behavior that's dangerous and stopping these accidents.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you just want to expand it so that it includes anybody in a car on the road who would potentially be in danger and could be to be.
Well, who's giving you some sort of warning that they're there?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I just, I guess I'm fine. I just worry that just like everything else, people may not be like, oh, I can't do this or I should do that. And therefore, all of a sudden the behavior changes. But I agree, it should be expanded to everybody who's on the road.
Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on Delegate Boyce's questions and thinking back to a discussion that we had on one of Delegate Parrott's bill, is this something that MDOT would be able to do a big education piece on? Because we're not changing people's behavior unless they know about it. And I'm just thinking about, all these drivers who will have no idea if we change the law unless they're educated.
I agree, totally.
Lar, I hate to give you more homework.
No, it's fine. My job. So I know that the Maryland Highway Safety Office already has a pretty robust campaign around the move over law in conjunction with state police and state highway. But I would certainly think that if the law was expanded, if this bill passed, that we would certainly push out, further messaging about the the additional designation under the law.
Yeah, like on the overhead displays. I know they already do some for emergency vehicles. We could just, it would just say all vehicles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that a lot, and you also see it outside of MDOT, like firehouses and stuff. You'll notice they say move over, it's the law, and move over, hang up, and stuff like that. I see it a lot.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right. Delegate Foley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question's for Patrick, because I got a little confused in your back and forth with Delegate Boyce. So I just want to make sure that this would just be, would require drivers as a traffic regulation to move over, just as it requires them to do that if there's an ambulance or other emergency vehicle, to move over a lane, right? If there's a disabled vehicle.
If they can, and if they can't, to slow to a reasonable and prudent speed.
Right.
It's safe to do so.
So if they didn't do that, if they didn't do that, and then and they were driving recklessly and they ended up hitting someone and killing them, that doesn't preclude additional charges against them, does it?
No.
Okay, so they could still so we're not saying that if somebody gets hurt or injured or killed, or somebody was driving drunk or somebody was driving recklessly and they hit somebody on the side of the road, there's other ways to prosecute them, or there are other laws that would come into play. This doesn't negate that, right?
No.
Okay.
No. And like Delegate Healy said, the main impetus of this law is behavior.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. All right. Any other questions for the good of the order? Or I think we're done next week. I think we should be able to get through most of these bills, and then we'll have some more bills. But we should be able to get through these bills and hopefully vote them up